Hello again. Welcome to another video. Last time we left off with the mention of a compassionate and proactive social worker from another organization. But before I stopped talking about what was happening to me at the nursing home, let me give you another taste for what was going on there with me. They kept telling me, you don't belong here, you're not going to stay here, you have to go. Sometimes in my very presence, they said things like I remember one time one person asked the other, asked the supervisor of the attendants there, maybe you want to have you want to take a shower? And the supervisor said, a shower? You're asking him if he wants to take a shower? Him? Meaning he doesn't take showers. He's a filthy patient or something like that. That was the implication. And then another thing is that late at night, they came to get me, put me in a wheelchair again, and wheeled me out to means of transportation, some kind of mini truck that they had, to take me somewhere. They didn't tell me where it was, but the woman that was coming with me from the nursing home kept telling me, you don't belong here. What are you doing here? When we got to the place, I was scared to death that I was going to be taken to the either I was going to be put out on the street, or I was going to be taken to the place where I used to live. There was nothing for me there, so that would have been the equivalent of being put on the street. Eventually, we got to the place where they were actually taking me, which was some kind of clinic where there were doctors, and they wheeled me in there and they checked me in. And as it turned out, what was happening there was it was time to do a follow-up consultation on my thigh operation, my thigh bone operation. That was it. That was all. But they kept letting me think the worst. When it was time for me to go in and see the doctor for the follow-up so that he would check me out, the person who had taken me there from the nursing home kept talking about her medical problems, to the point that I could feel that the doctor was getting angry at her. Finally, the doctor cut her off and said, listen, we're here to talk about this man's problems, not yours. So please, in essence, he was saying, shut up and let me take care of him. That shut her up. And I was taken back to the nursing home for another period of days of suffering and not knowing what was going to happen with me. Uncertainty, full uncertainty. Then now let's go back to that social worker that I was telling you about before, that compassionate person. She talked to me and reassured me and tried to tell me, you're not going to be put out on the street. It's against the law to do that. I didn't believe her. And I was just saying, you're just saying that, but I know that you believe that, but you don't know, because I don't have any money to pay for these services. And I don't know that I am eligible for any kind of help to pay for these services. And in the course of our conversation, it came up that I had been sleeping maybe 15 hours a day because I was So I was afraid that they were going to come in the middle of the night to take me away, which happened. Uh, so she said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be here for another 45 minutes. I'm going to move this chair to the door. I'm going to close the door, move the chair facing the door, and you can relax or go to sleep or do whatever you want to do for 45 minutes. I'll be your barrier, and I'm not going to let anyone walk in or disturb you in any way. And that was the way, that particular day, that I was able to sleep for about 45 minutes. At least close my eyes. A few days later, I was so distraught that she finally said, look, I work at this hospice house. I think you'd qualify to be a patient in that hospice house. So there's a bed available right now. I want to move you in immediately so that bed won't be taken by anyone else because they go fast. So I need your approval. Do you want to be moved? And I was so unable to make any kind of decisions or engage my brain in any kind of way that I actually doubted whether I wanted to be pulled out of there. I was thinking maybe I'm going to a worse place. So eventually, she said, I need your consent. Finally, I said, yes, okay, I want to move. So she made the phone call, and they came, got me out, and took me to the hospice house. I was, I mentioned that they move you in the middle of the night very often. Well, that's what happened this time, except that this time I knew where I was going. I was going to a good place, supposedly. At least I thought, from what she had told me, it was going to be a good place. And I just waited and waited and waited, and I think they finally came to get me at about 11:30 at night. They rolled me out. I was somewhat relieved. They got me out of there, and they took me to the hospice house. When I checked in with the nurse at the hospice house, their attitude was so completely different from the nursing home, that hellhole, that I thought I was going to cry. I was still afraid that I was going to be taken, out and be put on the street because I didn't know how I was going to pay for the services of the nursing home. But the nurse that checked me in assured me that that was not going to happen. Again, she told me that it was against the law and that I was going to stay there for the rest of my life because we thought that I was dying and that I was going to die in the hospice house, which is what hospice is for, in case you didn't know. I didn't know. So, but that is what I wanted. I wanted a place to die where I could be given the right kind of medications to ease me into death. So they checked me in, and I was able to finally sleep a sweet sleep. And in the morning when I woke up, the people around me were nice. They had all the information about my medications. They gave me my medications on time, which had not been the case at the nursing home. And I was in a completely different place. Now the question in my mind was, how am I going to pay for this? But I started to make friends with some of the nurses and attendants there. It was a completely different kind of place. So, question was, how long was I going to be able to stay there? I actually wanted to die as soon as possible. And speaking of dying, I should mention that when I was at the nursing home and even at the hospital, I wanted to die as quickly as possible. I think I've mentioned that I thought I was going to be wheeled out and placed just, maybe on a park bench outside the hospital or taken back to where I used to live. And I thought, well, I think there's a river not too far from here. I wonder how long it would take me to get to the river and submerge myself in it and let the waters take me away. I was really thinking about a specific plan on how to end my life. And I thought, well, how am I going to do it if they take me back to where I used to live? Well, there was also a river nearby. I would either do that, or it was getting cold, so I thought maybe I'll freeze to death. And I had heard that freezing to death was not too unpleasant. It was like going to sleep. That had all changed now, fortunately, because I had really considered it. I remember that sometimes the only way that I was able to close my eyes and doze off, even for those 15 minutes that I was able to sleep, was with the thought that I was going to be able to end my life. So now I was at the hospice house, and I can tell you about the hospice house and what happened later in the next video. I hope you'll join me then. See you later.